In this video, I'm going to show you 8 completely different ways of adding highlights to your painting. Some of them you've seen before, others hopefully you haven't seen before. And then we can talk about which method is good, which method is most opaque. And I'm not saying you can only use one of these. It's really good to try out these different methods so you have a wide variety of adding highlights method that you can use to give it completely different looks. So I've realized that I didn't press record when I did the watercolor and gouache. So I just want to go over what I did. The top half, this half, is with the Holbein Titanium White watercolor. If you want to use watercolor for your highlights, because maybe you want to keep white on your palette, that's easy to re-wet, and then I would recommend going for titanium white for a more opaque look and Chinese white for a semi-opaque look. On most brands, titanium white is going to be more opaque than the Chinese white, but there are 1 or 2 brands out there that's the other way around and it really confuses me every time. But on the whole, go for titanium white for the more opaque look. For the gouache, I used a Holbein Artist Gouache in permanent white, and gouache is normally going to be more opaque than watercolor. So if you want a watercolor painty kind of medium, but you want more opacity, then you can go for gouache. The only downside to gouache is that if you have it on your palette and dry it out, it doesn't re-wet quite as much and therefore it's not going to be as opaque. So with a gouache, you want to use it straight out the tube. And the best way to use gouache, as well as if you want an opaque look with a titanium white watercolor, is to mix just a little bit of water to make it like a double cream to a single cream kind of consistency so that you can have the opacity that you want. Next up are white pens, and here I have 3 that I just have in my studio. The first one is the Hybrid Gel Grip. I think it's Pentel. Yeah, it's Pentel. And I use this quite a lot in my painting for small white details. I also got the Deliter Neopiko Line White, which I haven't used before, but it's going to be part of a set of pens that I'm going to offer to my $50 patrons as the extra rewards this month. So do look out for that. And it'd be fun to see how this is. And then the very standard Uni Posca pen in the white. So this is the Hybrid Gel Grip. And the thing about this pen is that it goes on quite transparent, but it will become more opaque as you give it some time. It's not very good at the dots because the ink on the bowl will run out quite quickly. But I really like using this. Oh, I've run out. Of course, I ran out of the ink. As I'm filming this, there's actually no ink left in this pen whatsoever. But it's a really good pen, and as you can see, I use it a lot. Now we have the Deliter Neopiko Line White, which is a Japanese pen, and it's one of those pens that you have to shake and then squeeze a few times on a scrap piece of paper before you get the ink flowing. There we go. I see some ink starting to flow. This goes on much more opaque straight away. This is a 0.5mm version. And it goes on like you would expect these have to shake and press kind of pens. It's very easy to do dots and stuff. It doesn't run out of ink like the Pentel Hybrid when you do the dots. And it feels like a fine line Sharpie because it's kind of the similar top. And let's try filling an area. So that is the Deleter Neopiko Line White. And then I have the Uni Posca. And again, this is a shake pen. And press down on a piece of paper until ink starts to flow. This is the bullet shaped 0.9 to 1.3 millimeter tip. But I mean, you guys know that you can get lots of different tip sizes for this pen. And this has a little bit more scratchy feel. If you've used Posca pens before, you know what they feel like. They feel a little bit scratchy and, as you can hear, quite noisy. But it's a very orthodox white pen. There are obviously plenty of other pens out there that does white, and maybe I should do a white pen test at some point. If you are interested in that, then do let me know in the comments down below. So those are 3 different kinds of white pens. Next up, I have white ink, and for this I have the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. And this is one of those pens you can use on nib pens, or you can use it in a brush. But it comes quite thick. As you can see, it's very thick and it's not going to flow if you just try to use it like that. So what I do is scrape a little bit and then dilute it a tiny bit with water and some brush. And then load up the pen. Just like that. You can obviously use a brush as well as nib. I just thought this is quite fun because you can get quite thin lines with this. But obviously you need to be used to drawing or writing with a nib pen. Let me load that up a little bit more. Also, this is great ink if you want to do galaxy and do a lot of splatters with, say, a toothbrush. That is one thing you need to look out for when you are doing nib pen, though, is that you can drip if you put a little bit too much on the nib. But art is about making the most of happy little accidents, so I'm going to make it into a starburst. So you can see how thick or how opaque these inks are. And it is scratchy because I am using a pen, but that's not to do with the ink itself. It's just the tool I'm personally choosing to use right here. But I really like a nib pen because it has really uneven lines which make it look more alive, which adds texture to your painting. And the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White is your gold standard for white opaque ink to add highlights onto anything. As you can see, it's very opaque. There you go. Next one I am going to show you are white coloured pencils, and I have 2 here for you. I have the Holbein's Artist Coloured Pencils and the Caran Luminance Pencil. So first up we try the Holbein. This is a little bit more transparent, but it also adds very soft effects. And you don't have to worry about the paint underneath becoming re-wet again and tainting your white because it's a dry medium. And you can build up colors in layers and also use other colors that are a little bit opaque to add some highlights onto your artwork. And now we're going to have the Luminance by Caran. So these two are pretty similar in how it looks. I would say that the Caran one shows the blue through a bit more. I feel like this is slightly more blue tinted. And if you're going to layer, you can go in all different directions, and that's going to help fill in the dimples that are on the page as well. Next up, we have white oil pastels and crayons. For this one, I have the gorgeous Sennelier Artist Oil Pastel. You would have seen this in the resist technique. We drew on it and then painted over it. I will leave the link up here for you if you want to check that out. And we're going to use it for this as well. Obviously, you don't have to use white, you can use other colors. So that is me going over and over on the same line. This is just one line. It's pretty opaque because this oil pastel is so soft and melt. It's like putting on lipstick, and you can feel all the dimples pretty well if you go in all directions. So going across, up and down, then diagonally, it will fill it. With cheaper oil pastels or crayons, they tend to be a little bit harder and therefore harder to fill all the dimples. And they also tend to be a little bit more transparent, but this is lovely. It's just so nice. Next up, white pastels and pastel pencils. For the pastel, I have the lovely Unison Colour. This is grade 28, although it looks white to me. And this is an artist quality pastel. And the great thing about pastels is that it's pretty opaque. And you can blur them like this for much softer look. So maybe you want to add some misty look to your painting or anything, then you can blur them quite nicely. It also adds quite opaque highlight. This is the Conte A Paris Pastel 013. It's a pastel pencil. It has a very dry filter because it is basically a very dried out chalk pencil. And I've seen people use this to add whisker highlights, because it's quite a hard pastel. It's not like the Unison pastel where it's quite soft, or the white oil pastel. So you can add really energetic, fine whiskers like that. And also you get very good control in what you create with the highlight. And again, you can blur them as needed, just like the normal pastel. Another way to add highlight is to actually lift the paint that's already on the paper. And this is less about opacity and more about the effect it's going to add to your painting. So what you need is a clean piece of kitchen paper or tissue, something very absorbent, clean water, brush that's wet in clean water, and then just run your brush over. You can see the paint reactivating, and then just take that off with a tissue. And you can keep repeating that as long as your paper can handle it. If you do too much of this, your paper is going to get a little bit fluffy. How effective or how much this method can take off the paint from the paper depends on the paper and also the color that you are trying to lift. So staining colors are a lot harder to lift than a lighter color. So for example, if the color is granulating, tends to be that it's less staining and therefore it will lift easier. If it's something like a phthalo or a quin, then it's going to be more staining, just in general. And you can use your normal art painting brush, like I am using my go-to Proline Pro Art Plus in size 10. You can do very subtle effects like this. We're not scrubbing it off, but just lifting whatever comes up. Or you can use a little short stubby hog brush like this. Basically, the firmer the brush, the more you're going to be able to scrub off. Like this. You can see it's coming up much easier. You can get what they call a scrub brush. That's super expensive, but I would advise you against that, because all it is a hog brush that is short in the bristle lengths, just like this one. But I found this, I think, in the oil section. So this is a Ken Bromley Artist's Value Super Hog Short Flat for oil. Ken Bromley is a British website or British art supplier, so you're going to struggle to get that outside of the UK, but other brush makers and art supply brands will also have a little short stubby hog brush, and that is going to save you so much money compared to these specialized scrubbing brush for watercolor. There you go. So that lifts more. However, you just got to watch out, because it is a firmer brush bristle, it can fluff up your paper much faster. So don't rub too much on the paper to try avoid that. So you get these nice ghostly, more diffused highlight, which might be something you're looking for. And finally, this method doesn't involve any kind of paint or putting anything on, but it does involve a very sharp knife. So just do this very carefully. But what you can do is scratch the surface of the paper that the paint is on, and that just scratches the paint that's on it off, revealing the paper underneath. These are better for this kind of movement rather than trying to do this, because it really struggles. So do it one direction, do it obviously away from you so that your fingers are safe and you're not going to hurt yourself. But it's great for highlights. Again, great for whiskers if you practice enough and get full control so that you can get exactly the look you want. That is the 8 methods that we covered on this video. The paints are all dry. I would say the most opaque is Dr. P.H. Martin. It's a clear winner. The second is the Holbein Gouache in the permanent white. However, the permanent white, you do have to worry about the paint underneath lifting. In terms of white pens, out of these, I would say that the Dilettante Neopiko line white is the most opaque. However, I still really like the Pentel Hybrid Gel Grip because it gives me really thin details. When you use a colored pencil, it gives you a semi-opaque kind of look where the color of the paint underneath still shows and you can see it. Between oil pastels and pastel pencils, I would say that the pastels give you a whiter look, but you can fill the little dimples on a cold pressed paper much better if you have a high quality artist soft oil pastel. Lifting the paint with brush and water and tissue gives it a nice ghostly look. And finally, for the scratch with a sharp knife, it gives nice thin highlights, but it is kind of limited in what you can do with it, purely because you can't go in both directions with a knife easily without actually cutting up the paper. I hope this video was useful to you. Do let me know in the comments down below which one was your favorite, and if you've decided to try a new method, do let me know which one you want to give it a go. I have a list of everything that I've used in this video down below as to where you can get it. Also, if you want a quick reminder of the 8 methods, I will upload the high-res scan of this test sheet so that you have a one quick photo where you can see everything. Thank you so much for watching this video. Do hit the like and subscribe button and comment away. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye!